Okay, your 7-year-old son diagnosed with a specific learning disability in reading, in quotations, dyslexia. He is in the first grade. Shouldn't he be getting additional reading instruction outside of his regular education curriculum? And then you list the additional diagnoses. Now, that's an IEP team decision. So there's nothing that says that he can't have pull-out services. The big question is that can he receive a free appropriate public education by pushing the reading instruction or the specialized instruction into, and the other thing is, what is the primary exceptionality? Because if you're listing autism, ADHD, dyslexic, I mean, I see a potential of 3 potential exceptionalities, meaning disability categories for which he could independently qualify. And I'm sorry, did you say, yeah, okay, he. All right, so in that regard, I'm not 100% sure which is the primary exceptionality. I know that you said that he gets services for reading or for a specific learning disability, but which is the primary? And is that important? Well, yes and no, because the least restrictive environment for your child is sort of built upon how the entire IEP is put together. And so at that point, more detail is sort of needed to sort of understand that. Now, when it comes to specific learning disabilities, at that age group of first grade, I see a lot of schools really wanting to push in those services into general education. So if there is an acknowledgement that there's reading deficits and he has a reading goal, then there must be specialized instruction put into the IEP. And if that is being pushed into general education, how is that being done? You see, that's going to be very important. And let me say it like this. Guys, general education is being provided to all students, all right? General education is being provided to all students. Not all students have IEPs. Kids that have IEPs have a recognized qualified disability. There's only 13 areas for which you can qualify for an IEP in most of the states in this country. The second thing is that they have to be in need of specialized instruction. It's not enough just to have the qualifying disability, guys. You have to have the need for specialized instruction. Okay? So if your child has a reading disability, it's recognized by the IEP team, they have a goal designated, then they have to have services designated for special education to accomplish that goal. Being that all children receive instruction in their core curriculum, including reading at that age, then that's what every child's getting that. Your child gets specialized instruction because there's an acknowledgement your child has an IEP, your child has a reading goal, your child requires specialized instruction in order to remediate or teach the skills necessary to address that deficit. Okay, what does that say within your IEP? Who is providing that service? The general ed teacher can't provide specialized instruction. That's a supporting role. You see, your child has special education needs. Every child gets general education. So if your child has that goal, who is doing that? And if they're pushing that into that classroom, how are they doing that? How many minutes a week are they doing that? And I can tell you that at that early age, I don't have a lot of kids recognized with dyslexia in first grade. Usually that pops up later, let's say after third grade, when the curriculum flips from learning to read to reading to learn, to where, a lot of the issues with regards to written expression and fluency and the other areas tend to rear its ugly head and really pose a problem. I applaud your team and I applaud you for addressing that on a foundational level when we have all the resources to get it handled at that age. But at the same time, you're exactly right. The devil's in the details. And so what does your special education section say about that? And it needs to have a detailed explanation about the peer-reviewed, scientifically proven approach that they're using. Because remember, you have a general curriculum. That's what all kids are getting. Your child needs an individualized approach because they have special education services. So if that's the case, what approach are they using? It has to have a name. You got to tell me what you're doing. Schools don't like to put that in there. They don't like to name programs. Doesn't matter. Put it on a cocktail napkin for me. Just write it down here. It's okay. Put it in the meeting minutes. Put it somewhere so that the parent understands what peer-reviewed program is being used. That way, you can understand whether or not the science behind it is being followed. Can't tell you how many scientifically approved programs are used in schools, but then you read what makes it peer-reviewed, scientifically based. Oh, 4 days a week for 50 minutes. That's what the science says. Or, 5 days a week for 50 minutes. And then you find out in your child's IEP, they're only doing it 2 days a week for 20 minutes. Well, then they're not following the instructions of that manufactured product. Because the science in its effectiveness is connected to frequency. How often do you have to do it in order to achieve these results? So you need to analyze your child's IEP. You need to understand what it says. How are they laying out the reading intervention? How many minutes a week? Where is that being provided? And if it's being provided inside the general education classroom, who is doing that? Because it needs to be a special education teacher. It needs to be a resource teacher, or however the designation there. Can't be a general ed teacher. They're a supporting role. Your child has an IEP. If your child didn't need an IEP, then they'd just be in general education with everybody else without that additional need. So the general education works in collaboration with special education to address those deficits that the general education teacher sees in your child. The special education teacher comes in to address those deficits. It can be done inside general education. I'm not saying it can't. But if they can't do it, if none of this stuff makes sense to you, if it is all just sort of gobbledygook, a lot of words without you understanding it, then you need to ask those questions. It needs to be broken down. They need to name the program. They need to follow what the science says. Whatever that program says, you can Google it and it will tell you this is the recommendation. If the recommendation is 4 days a week, 5 days a week, then that's what the school needs to be doing. Otherwise, they're not following the instructions of that product. Which means that yes, they can pull your child out. They can devote those services in a pull-out format. And then, of course, once it's in a pull-out format, then you need to sit there and ask those additional questions. Okay, they're going to say, well, it can be provided directly one-to-one with your child or in a small group. The devil's in the details there. What kind of small group? How many kids are in the small group? What curriculum and peer-reviewed program are you using for that small group? Because not every one of those kids are at the same level with the same deficits at the same time. You need to ask the questions. You need to have that broken down and explained to you in detail. Every parent out there, they can't just slop this stuff together as they typically do and then have parents just go, oh, no, the devil is in the detail. Have them break it down for you. Have them explain it to you. Do research on Google. Mind-blowing. But you can hold them accountable by asking the necessary questions.